There were 5 of us. John, our clear-eyed skipper, Captain Hank Halstead, Tyler Coneys, John's first sailing coach, and a crewman named Declan Jameson, employed because he was an excellent cook who knew how to prepare macrobiotic meals. We stocked the galley with tomatoes and tomato paste, corn and baby corn, beets, beans, brown rice, tofu and lentils, tuna, salmon, canned fruits for emergencies, and even some canned meat, spam. What is in spam? Water, jugs of it because you can't drink salt water. Medical supplies, seasickness pills, laundry soap, Dr. Bronner's, books. Yes, books. The first thing John said when he saw Captain Hank was, "It's the zigzag man." Because, funnily, he resembled the man on the packets of rolling papers, with a black beard and a bandana. The oddest thing about him at first was that he seemed not to know who John was. But the John he was ferrying to Bermuda was John Lennon. As they unpacked, John noticed a pair of chopsticks among Captain Hank's possessions. "My girlfriend's Japanese," Hank said. "Mine too," John said. And still no recognition. An hour later, it dawned on him, but his treating John like an amiable client had the effect of putting them at ease with each other. He wanted to head to sea unidentified, a father, a musician, an Englishman maybe, but not for this time, a Beatle. It seemed that way to me. Our boat was a 43-foot Hinkley sloop, no balsa raft, no cruise ship, big enough that you felt sturdy sluicing through the waves and small enough to feel the sea pitching beneath you. There was a little dinette where we ate breakfast and swapped stories, a few places that opened up into sleeping berths, a radio panel, storage drawers within which were charts, ship manuals, and items like waterproof gloves, a compass, binoculars, extra lines. A stainless steel sink and a stove with 3 burners. Declan started in on the galley, putting food away and locating things he'd need to make meals. "Does it smell like rotten fish in here?" he asked. He sniffed his own armpits. "I guess it's just me." Tyler had sold John the ISIS and taken him out on it the first 4 or 5 times. "Have you done this trip before?" I asked. "I've never been more than a mile off the coast," Tyler said. "You?" "No," I said. "Never been in the open sea." "It's different out there," he said. "Was there any truth to the stories about the Bermuda Triangle?" I asked. "Oh, you mean the squadron of planes that plunged into the sea, and the ships mysteriously lost, and the UFOs, and the ghost ship?" Tyler said. "Yes," I said. It's shit mostly, but it's pretty gnarly to sail through it at certain times of the year." "Why's that?" I asked. "The Gulf Stream can do some crazy things in a storm." "What's our sailing forecast?" Declan asked. "Nice and clear. Small chance of something hitting late in the week, but the storm season's still a month away." From a porthole, I saw the waterline above, and it had you thinking of how little there was between you and a world in which you could never survive. "You want the real mindfuck? Go up and look back at where we just left from," Declan said. If you've never seen the shore disappear from the back of a small craft, it's both unsettling and magical. It feels like you've disappeared, vanished off the map, and of course you have, in a sense. We were sailing southeast toward a speck in the ocean with only our wits and the stars to guide us. We all went up, the 5 of us, and watched the ocean swallow the land. The coastline got smaller, then smaller again, and then it was gone. "And so is your life before now," Captain Hank said. Everywhere around us was the same. Nothing but water and sky. No reference points, no street lamps or road signs, no mountains or fields or buildings, no people. "We're nowhere," Tyler said. "Write that down," John said. He had a rueful smile as though thinking, why did it take me so long to get here? At some point, Hank asked him about his time with the Maharishi, when they left to crush a fame for Rishikesh. "Our little guru, tiny little voice," John said. Meditation takes you to a place of bliss. He used the Maharishi's high-pitched voice. A peace beyond understanding. Oh! He had that little giggle. Didn't he fuck around with some of the women? He was sexy Sadie, I said. What are you talking about? Originally, John said, it went something like, Maharishi, you little twat, who the fuck do you think you are, you little cunt? I guess you couldn't go with that. No, too bad. And we learned a lot from him in the end. There'd been a card game earlier, and John had lost. Declan suggested an alternative to paying off his bet. What's that? Inside information. What sort? Well, while we're in India, where did happiness is a warm gun come from? Declan said. It's heroin, right? I need a fix. Or else it's sex. Bang, bang, shoot, shoot. It's a masterpiece for the ages, Hank said. Is it interview the ex-Beatle time? If so, I'll take the dinghy back to Newport. Not at all, Declan said. We just need you to clear up some differences of opinion. Feck off, John said, and sort of smiled. 6 songs and I promise to shut my mouth. Get that in writing, Tyler said. An article I saw in a gun magazine, John offered. I thought it was crazy. Guns are warm when you've just shot someone. I'm so tired, I asked, in part because my eyes felt heavy. I couldn't sleep in India and came up with it. I like that one. Why don't we do it in the road? Hank asked. Paul saw some monkeys fucking in the road once. The piano intro to Obladi, Oblada, Hank asked. That's two, but since you're the captain. I wrote it drunk and pissed off at Paul. He'd commandeered every bloody note and phrase on the whole song. So I went out, got myself stoned, and walked back in and said, now this is how the fucking song should go. I told you, Anton, Paul was Captain Bligh. This went on for a while, this improbably perfect night out at sea with John and Hank and the rest. Eventually, Hank told me to get some sleep because I was on watch in 6 hours and I'd need to be alert. The song, Good Night, I asked then. That one's for Julian. I gave it to Ringo to sing. My father used to sing Good Night to Kip before he went to sleep, I said. Without the weepy string section, I hope. I heard Elliot's voice in my ear saying, ask him for fuck's sake. But I couldn't risk messing up the beautiful mood, and so I slipped down into the cabin, crawled into my sleeping bag, and went to sleep. On the 3rd morning, a pod of dolphins appeared during breakfast. What looked 100 of them diving this way and that from under the boat and all around us, as though they'd been booked for our early day enjoyment. It's a dazzling thing to see them, so fast and beautiful, playful, and smart from what I'd read. Before lunch, we dropped anchor and swam off the side of the boat for a while. I borrowed the captain's mask and fins. I saw barracuda and a lot of jellyfish. The radio, when I pulled myself out of the sea, played James Brown singing, "Get up off of that thing." I took the late afternoon watch and, with the sun on my face and the warm breeze in my hair, felt a deep sense of contentment. I understood how someone could want to sail across the oceans, to spend months at sea, and I thought I could imagine why someone like Sir Francis Chichester might choose to do it alone. There's a rhythm to life at sea. And it doesn't sweep you up right away, but there was something about sluicing through the ocean waves with only the wind for power, and with the sun and moon as your guides, that felt right. Like something every human being needed to do. I saw, too, what John had wanted from this, because without knowing it, it was what I wanted and needed. Whatever you hoped for from meditation or drugs, the ego-demolishing escape could be had out at sea. Because whoever you were before was gone out here. You could see in the distance the curve of the planet. It looked like we were in the middle of a fountain and the water was pouring over the sides. Everything was better at sea, I thought in that moment. The food, the conversation, the beer, the weed, the air, the smells, the sleeping at night with the sound of waves all around. And now we moved on toward the Gulf Stream, and toward a tiny speck in the sea they called Bermuda, and the Mudian girls that John spoke of like plump Tahitian beauties. We would each of us find at least one of them to accompany us to the beach and back to their thatched roof home, where they would feed us and lay with us and take us in the morning to their favorite private lagoon where tropical birds would serenade us and where coconuts would fall nearby. We'd crack them open and drink the cool milk straight from the shell. When John was out of earshot, taking a piss, I think, the captain said to me, "You realize who this is? This man is a satellite. He's a blessing. He's literally touched 100 million lives. He's a certified genius, and he spent those years hiding away. And now, he's free of all that, and you can see it. And we're blessed to be with him on this journey. This is the trip of your life, of my life." I thought a little unfairly of my father's voyages, and how significant it was that John had brought me out here, and Buddy had left us all behind. Later that afternoon, after my watch concluded uneventfully, the winds picked up, and then off in the distance you could see a front coming in, the clouds blackening, the sunlight dimming. And it was at first beautiful and dramatic, and a small part of you thought, this could be tricky. When I looked over at Captain Hank's face, I understood that we were in trouble. To be sure, he was calm, but he stopped joking around, and after a lot of serious watching, he began to bark instructions. "Get your gear on," Hank said. Tyler put on his rain gear and sea boots. John did as well. My job, Hank said, was to go below and help Declan clear the surfaces, tie things down, double-check the ports, and make sure everything was secure. "Ah, geez, you feel that?" Tyler said. It was the wind, and you could hear it now, whistling through. "I hate that sound," Tyler said. "Why?" "Because it'll really start ripping in a minute or two." Then the sound was all around us. The sail flapping, the waves pounding the boat, the spray hitting our faces. "Here we go," John said. "Up the masthead, Mr. Byam," he said to me. I don't think he realized what this was any more than I did. The sky went gray above us, soon to be black, and I thought of the Wizard of Oz when the twister swirls toward Dorothy. Tyler looked out and said, "This looks bad." Just that. The first part of you that wakes up in a storm, Hank would say later, is your ears. You hear the high pitch of the wind and the slap of the sails, then the creaking of the masthead and of the boat itself, moan, crack, and the rat-a-tat of the rain. Then there's the ping, ping sound of the wind through the rigging and the rip of ropes sliding and the creak of boards bending and the violent music of the sea itself. And then your eyes brace for the sting of salt and the sight of a sail tearing or falling and of the waves rising behind you to worrisome heights. Down below, Declan was locked in the lavatory, puking. The floor of the Megan J tilted and things flew around. A bottle of red wine slid from the counter onto the floor and splattered the walls and some nearby cushions. While I cleared up pieces of glass, a drawer swung open, and plates and cups flew out along with a knife that dropped an inch from my foot. I did my best to mop it all up, but the sound of Declan blowing chow destroyed my own equilibrium, and soon I was equally sick. And I went back up to get some air and to see how high the waves had gotten. Hank was at the wheel. John and Tyler were following his commands. I looked behind the boat and saw a wave the size of a brownstone barreling toward us, poised to drown us all, and then it grabbed the boat and hoisted us up to the heavens and then dropped us on the other side. I willed myself to feel better, to not succumb to seasickness, to be strong and earn my stripes, but I was too far gone and threw up violently off the side of the boat and nearly fell in. The storm raged all day and into the night. Those who were seasick hung below, and those who weren't took turns battling the beast. Hank and Tyler took a watch, then John and Hank, then Tyler and John. Then Tyler got sick and joined us below, and John came down after that to take a nap. At some point, the anchor had broken loose and was banging at the end of a chain in the bow of the boat. I wanted to go secure it and do something heroic, but Hank went down there himself, crawling along the deck, the ocean crashing over him, at one point submerging the back of the boat. I watched him, and I saw him disappear for a bit. And we knew in that instant we would die, because no one could do what he could do in a storm. And then we saw his head rise up, and he finished the job, tied the anchor down, and slid back up our way. "Piece of cake," he said. "You're a god," John said. "The zigzag god." There's no way to escape a storm at sea. It hits you, and you can't hit back. You dodge the blows, then burrow into the belly. Tyler likened it to driving a bumpy road with eyes closed and knowing you'll hit a tree or fall down an incline, but not knowing exactly when. I crawled into my damp sleeping bag and tried to sleep. I even did for a while, maybe 2 hours, but then I woke, or half woke, and I was in my hospital bed, in Gabon, sick with malaria, my head feverish, my dreams crazy, the room around me spinning and then rocking like a boat. And I thought it was so strange that a hospital room, was I now at the hospital? Was I still in Africa? And why was the hospital room rocking up and down like a cabin on a boat? And why were there waves outside and the sounds of wind? It must be that a storm had hit in Africa around my hospital room, but I was waterlogged, my brow sweaty and tasting of salt. And then I closed my eyes and went somewhere warm, on a beach, far away. And I must have slept for a while. When I woke again, I felt sick. I went over to the sink and splashed water over my face. Now, I wasn't hungry, but I felt very weak and extremely seasick. Had I taken Dramamine? I was pretty sure I had, but I searched for my bottle and found one and ate it. I got to my feet, put my jacket on, and stumbled up the steps and out into the wind and spray and the awful sound, everything flapping and creaking. That sound that makes you certain that the whole boat will soon split apart and will all be shark food. That makes you picture the shark in Jaws taking your body up to the stomach. And maybe you'd survive that way. As a stomach, chest, 2 arms, shoulders, a neck, and a head. I'd seen Vietnam vets without their lower body, I think, though mostly they just had stumps for legs. Hank was at the helm. He looked calm. He was with John, and they looked like a matched pair, like lifelong friends. And I wished that I hadn't been so useless, that I'd been out there with them. The sky was black now, from horizon to horizon. "Did you get anything on the radio?" "Nothing's coming in. I got a report an hour ago about a storm, but we didn't need a report on that." "How long will it last? A day? 2? 3? "How long will we last is the question," John said. "A lifetime," Hank said. "We'll beat this." The waves in the Gulf Stream arise heedlessly and haven't traveled far over the ocean, which means the wave periods are shorter and the waves are closer together. And this is what's so different about them. It's that as your bow comes off one wave, the trough is so small, the bow has no time to start climbing the next wave, which is on you too soon. And it's bigger than the last, and it can knock you broadside, and then you're fucked. Hank calls this state of things confusion. You have this 700-mile tract of ocean, and you run a river of 80-degree water through it, the waves get confused. And there's nothing more dangerous, he said, than a confused wave. The hope in a storm is that you keep climbing them with the bow and dropping on the other side, and you never let the wave crash over the back of the boat. Hours vanished, then a whole day. Was it Tuesday or Friday? The wind kept howling. Eating was a problem. We were sick, but you couldn't go days without eating or drinking. It was hard to keep the kettle on long enough for the water to boil, and once the water boiled, you couldn't pour it into cups without scalding yourself. Everything was impossible, and I felt sicker and sicker. In my dreamy state, I imagined the ghosts of all the lost ships and the lost planes beneath us, awaiting our arrival. We would add to the legend. I imagine my parents hearing about it and finding out through a news report that I was on the boat. I'd be an afterthought at best. I had this crazy dream where I jumped off a building, and then halfway down I realized I didn't want to die. And so I started to reach out for the ledges, and it's like in a cartoon. My hand grabbed and slipped, grabbed and slipped. Then I did a flip, and my head hit a series of ledges. This went on for a while, and then finally, there was a window open. I managed to fall into it, and when I did, it was a surprise party for me. And everyone was waiting for me inside, like it was all planned. And in the dream, I wondered how they would know, in that I had planned to die. And I asked my mother, and she said, "We knew you'd come back." And then I was eating cake and blowing out the candles, and I made a wish. And my wish was that I never wake up, that I can live in this dream world where everyone's waiting inside for me, and that whatever I do, there's a window open for me to fall back through. An hour or a day later, on my way to get myself something to drink, I saw what looked to be everyone below. Tyler, who'd been throwing up for hours, and Declan, who'd never recovered, and Hank, who'd at last come down to get some sleep. Someone was up there, shouting at the waves and singing. "Who's up there?" I said. No one answered. "I thought you were up there," Tyler said. "It's John," said Captain Hank. My first thought was, you have got to be fucking kidding me. And I was furious with Hank for being so taken with John that he believed he could survive on his own out there. Because I'd been with him, and he'd done fine on Long Island Sound, but these chaotic seas were too much for me, or Tyler, or Declan, or anyone but the captain. And we were dead, I knew. We were as good as dead. Really? Listen. Do you hear that? It's pure rapture. He's yelling at the sea gods. He's joyful, joyful. Now here's the strange magical mystery part of this spectacular adventure. When I went up to look, it was in fact John in the cockpit, harnessed in, legs on either side of the cockpit rails, hands gripping the steering wheel, singing at the top of his lungs the foulest, filthiest, manliest sea shanty. His glasses now sprayed over with the sea, his face glistening, guiding us through gale winds and dysfunctional waves. I would learn later that Captain Hank had succumbed after 30 hours to sleep, and thinking he'd get a half hour or so of rest within listening distance, left the boat to an apprentice sailor who'd sailed it by himself for close to 7 hours through raging seas and wild winds, strapped himself in like Gordon Liddy to that stupid fucking tree. He seemed overjoyed, as though everything in his painful, beautiful life had led up to this. Would that I'd been the one to save us, I thought, but only for a second, before realizing that people like me didn't do things like this. Just as I'd never descended by helicopter into a stadium of 60,000, or brought a generation of girls to tears. It made weird sense that he would save my life, our lives, and best of all, his own.